Hello everyone and welcome to my channel once again. So after almost a week since the season has released, I am finally here with the updated guide for my Rend dream for season 3. And oh my god, am I having a blast with this build, especially after spending so much time playing Hoda in season 2 to push Abathur of Zir. This is a wonderful change of pace and I am so glad that people like it. I'm getting so many comments under YouTube videos, on my Facebook posts or on the Discord that they are enjoying this build and that they are having a blast over playing Hoda. Like, that just fills me with happiness. That makes me want to work on the build more, to optimize it even further, to do the testings and obviously to continue doing builds in the future as well. So let's have a look at it. I added a lot of variations actually, even like a leveling variation, and I even kept the original Rend plus Flay Paingorger's build here, but because I was hoping for plus like 2 or 3 skills to all basic attacks, because that would make sense, right? Because that's what you use gloves for ranks of your core skills. So if there are gloves made specifically for basic skills, I expected them to have skills to basics, which would make it extremely powerful and a lot of fun. But yeah, the stats on them are very underwhelming, so I decided to go full Rend, and especially Rend plus Whirlwind. Okay, like I've been doing a bit of testings, on the dummies, and oh my god, does it work well. It's awesome. The animation canceling, the fury sustain, and I have one roll of resource gen on my ring, and it's even the lowest roll, and the resource gen is through the roof. So like, even with Silic and Ramalnis in the build, you don't have to worry about fury being an issue. So the build I'm gonna be talking about today is the main build, the Rend plus Whirlwind build, because that's the build I'm having the most amount of fun with right now. But there are all the builds. Like, there is the build, Rend no Uber leveling boards. That's the build I used in my video where I'm clearing T86, was it, at level 85? So that's the build, as like, obviously it's the no Uber plus leveling one, right? And it was me leveling, so you can use that. If you don't like the no generator kind of playstyle, you can still just go with Rend and Silic. All of it works, all of it was good, but the most amount of fun for me is definitely the Whirlwind one. And so yeah, let's get right into it. Let's start with the skill tree actually. Okay, so in the skill tree, what we're going for is point in lunging and enhanced lunging. That's just to get to our core skills. Unfortunately, you have to put points here. I really don't like it because we are not actually using the skills. So it's like 2 skill points that we would have used elsewhere, and it would actually benefit the build. But it's whatever. That's how we have to do it. Then 1 point in Whirlwind and enhanced Whirlwind for the Fury generation. We are not using Whirlwind to do damage. That's still Rend, that's still charge, rupture, all of that. This is a bleed build. We are using Whirlwind for the weapon swapping and animation canceling. Okay, so that's why we only put these 2 points into Whirlwind. Then we dump all of the points that we can into Rend, because we want to do as much bleeding damage as possible. Enhance Rend so that we have 100% uptime on vulnerable. Once we apply it with our exploit glyph, it pretty much never falls off thanks to enhanced Rend and violent Rend, so that we do more damage to vulnerable enemies. Then we are taking 3 points in imposing presence for more HP, 3 points into martial vigor for more DR against elites, 1 point into outburst, and 1 point into tough as nails. The reason for that is because we are using revenge glyph in the Paragon board, which I will get to later. Then we are going for 2 points into swiftness for some extra movement speed. We want to be as fast as possible. Only 2 points here because we need to use them elsewhere. And 2 points is actually more than enough for the movement speed, because we have movement speed on the Heart of Selic on our boots, and as you can see, it's 155.5% movement speed. If I remove this point from swiftness, it doesn't change. That's because the max roll planner does not account for swiftness. So if we use swiftness, when we get the movement speed from berserking, or even another movement speed when using Ref of the Berserker, we are gonna be fast as lightning. I would like to use Ghostwalker to really min-max of the movement speed to pretty much cap it, but we cannot use it. The reason for that is that Ghostwalker is bugged. If you don't know what Ghostwalker does, basically after you become unstoppable, you get 25% movement speed and you can move through units. What it then does though is that even your abilities move through units. So when you use charge, which is like the bread and butter of all the builds in season 3, you will just run through the enemies. That's stupid, right? You will literally run through. You won't be able to knock them to the wall to do the extra damage, to get the stun. Nothing. You'll go through. So I'm not using Ghostwalker for that reason. Otherwise I would. But yeah. 3 points into aggressive resistances for the DR. We love DR because, well, you can't do damage if you're dead, right? 3 points into Prolific Fury for some increased Fury generation. 3 points into Battle Fervor. This basically ensures that we have 100% uptime on Berserking, because we will also have 0 seconds cooldown on charge once we get all the items rolling. But even without the Ubers or anything, it's still 3 seconds cooldown, 3 to 4 seconds. So the uptime on Berserking is almost 100%. It's absolutely insane. And in the leveling build, I am actually using lunging with combat lunging strike. Okay, not using Whirlwind there, because the extra healing and the extra berserking helps quite a lot. Okay, so yeah, before you get the BIS items, that's one way you can ensure 100% uptime on the Zerking. Okay. Then of course we dump all the points into charge. Charge is extremely powerful. Like if you look at the tooltip, it outperforms any other skill in the game. It will show you more damage than anything and everything. Okay, so charge, bread and butter of this build, especially for the AoE, it just one-shots the screen. Okay, and because we are playing vaults, and vaults don't even have bosses, and they are way better to be farmed than nightmare dungeons, then we don't have to care about single target or bossing damage that much. Enhanced charge, so that we do more damage when we knock enemies back into the terrain and stun them, which further works with our aspects, and power charge for the reduced cooldown. Then we take 3 points into Pit Fighter for some increased DR and increased damage, 1 point into Rupture, Enhanced Rupture, and Warrior's Rupture. Warrior's Rupture gives us attack speed, a lot of attack speed. This is basically a two-handed accelerating aspect, so that's absolutely bonkers. And because Enhanced Rupture scales with our strength, and we have tons of it, we have almost 1500. I don't suppose that you will have like all of the items perfectly rolled like all the way up. So, but I'm like, I'm certain that most of you or most of us will be able to get the 1450, okay? And every 50 strength, we gain the bonus damage for Rupture. So it will be 290% increased damage for the Rupture, thanks to having tons of strength. Plus, obviously, strength also increases all of our damage, increases our armor. So it's double dip to everything, you know? Then we get a 1 point into Harmstring. That will ensure that all of our enemies are crowd controlled, which further, works with the rest of our build. But the most important stuff is Cut to the Bone, because again, we do more bleeding damage against vulnerable enemies. 3 points into Volop. Ballop, whatever. Wallop, probably. 3 points into Wallop for increased damage when using bludgeoning weapons. Okay, and we will actually be using bludgeoning two-handed weapon for our whirlwind. And for all the other skills, we will be using Ramoldnis, so sword and a bludgeoning weapon, a mace. So we will be doing like non-stop 15% increased damage against vulnerable enemies, okay? Then 1 point into Tempered Fury to get into 3 points of Furious Impulse. This will help us sustain the Fury while swapping weapons. And of course, our strongest offensive cooldown, Wrath of the Berserker, with Prime Wrath of the Berserker and Supreme Wrath of the Berserker, because we are still, you know, pumping and focusing on damage while berserking. So yeah, you can't really play without it. It's just so strong. And the skill key passive is unconstrained because it got buffed, and it further, like, you know, the synergy between unconstrained and Wrath of the Berserker is just insane. You really cannot get anything better unless you're playing Hoda, because if you're playing Hoda, you actually need to spend more Fury. So Unbridled Rage is the obvious choice there, but otherwise unconstrained, baby, unconstrained. So that's it for the skills. The last skill here is, you could say, like a flex point, okay? That's from Shaco. That's for free. You don't need to put any points there, okay? So like if you're feeling like you're not tanky enough, which you should be because this build has Melted Heart of Selic, so basically making you immortal, you can use Challenging Shout, you can use Iron Skin, or if you feel like your Fury Gen is not enough, but it should be more than enough, then you can also use Rallying Cry. But I'm going for damage, so I chose to use War Cry. You know, you can also use like Leap, you can use like Leap for extra mobility. There's really a lot of stuff you can do based on preference. My preference, especially as a controller player, you know, chilling on a sofa or like in my beanbag or whatever, just simply chilling and not try harding the gameplay much. Warcry is just, you just press it and you have it. That's like, mwah, awesome. I love it. So that's what I use for the build. Now, let's look at the Paragon board. Now, in the first board, we are going for Brawl that further increases the damage of our Brawl skills. So it increases the damage of our charge, which, yeah, we are kind of focusing on charge with bleeds. Basically, all the builds now, apart from Hota. Hota can be focusing on Hammer of the Ancients plus charge, but pretty much all the other builds are focusing on charge and then having the core skill to like supplement it, right? Or the core skill to do the damage to bosses. So Brawl in the first board, as like Brawl, what it does, unfortunately, it would be much better if it just boosted magic notes or whatever, is that it boosts physical damage and damage reduction modifiers. So the only thing it really boosts is either plus physical damage notes or armor notes, and that's what we have here. So we are getting some extra armor, which is good. You know, we still want to get the cap or as close to the cap as possible so that we are, well, immortal. And then the physical damage. Okay, so this is where we are using Brawl. Then we are going to the Warbringer because we are using Rammeldness. So we are getting more damage the more Fury we have. So we want to have as much Fury as humanly possible. So we are getting all of these nodes that we can, and using Exploit. Exploit is how we apply Vulnerable. Rend is how we sustain it, how we keep it at 100% uptime because we keep refreshing it. Okay. Then we go to the right. We take Carnage board, you know, self-explanatory. Like, this board is the best board that we have. It has tons of damage while berserking. It has pretty much free attack speed, which is awesome. You know, more damage while berserking. This is just an awesome board. DR, you know, from close enemies, just mwah. That's what we want. Then we go up. Nothing changes here either. Using Blood Rage board. Oh yeah, I forgot the glyph. I'm sorry about that. It's ambidextrous. It increases our damage while using one-handed weapons. You know, as I said previously, Whirlwind we are using for the Fury gen, from swapping weapons and for the animation canceling, not for damage. So we need to slot in the mace, or we can use the sword as well. Okay, because if we use the sword on Whirlwind, it will give us some extra bleeding, and if we manage to kill an enemy with Whirlwind, it will increase the damage of our bleeding effects. As you can see, you deal 30% increased bleeding damage for 5 seconds after killing an enemy. That's the secondary effect of two-handed sword expertise. So yeah, either you can use two-handed mace for extra chance to stun enemies, for extra chance to, there are two-handed maces here, for extra chance for fury, because when you are using two-handed bludgeoning weapons, you have you know, some lucky hit chance to gain fury when hitting an enemy. If you are berserking, which we are non-stop, it is doubled, you know, plus then it's also modified by all of our fury generations, right? So that further helps with the fury sustain. So depending how fury sustain looks with literally all of the gear that we have, that's where I would decide. And if I were to go for maces, I would probably use an axe here instead of the sword, because crit strike damage doesn't do anything for the damage over time effects. But axes got damage against healthy enemies, which is valuable. That does increase the damage. That does increase the damage of our damage over time effects. So yeah, here we'll have to wait and see. I am still not at best in slot gear. Like, I am not, so sorry. This I will update in the future. If you have the gear, you can just, you know, slot it in, see for yourself, and then use whatever's better. My guess is that we might actually have enough Fury Gen to use swords just for that extra bleeding damage, which obviously would be the better option. So yeah, this is like for the expertise, but everything else, you know, our charge, our rend, our rupture, all of it, we are using our dual wield, our one-handed weapon. So ambidextrous just boosts the shit out of it. Okay, plus of course the remit is the reason why we are using dual wield for everything. Okay, so then we are going up. We are using the Blood Rage board again. The standard board, we always want it because we want the Blood Rage. It gives us multiplicative damage increase from our additive stat damage while berserking, which that's the reason why we are maxing it out. So yeah, like this is busted. This is busted. This is like, yeah, it's it's just so damn strong. It's just so damn strong. Obviously, it also gives us some DR, you know, from bleeding enemies, damage against bleeding enemies, increases our berserking duration, so it further helps us have 100% uptime on it. So yeah, that's just awesome. Then we go to the right, where oh yeah, and the glyph is ire, because yeah, again, we further want to get more damage while berserking. It also gives us DR. Then we go to the right, where we are using Decimator and Revenge. Some people might actually be using Disembowel here to reduce the cooldown of our non-ultimate cooldowns, and it is pretty cool. It works. It helps with being able to use Rupture more often, but everything else is already off cooldown. You know, well, it also helps with the Warcry, so you have the damage increase from Warcry. But I actually went with Revenge because yeah, like we are pretty much instant killing everything in AoE, right? But the Gauntlet might have a boss at the end, or maybe you are also like, you want to be playing, I don't know, Grigor or Duriel or whatever. Those fights take longer, and Revenge gives us multiplicative damage increase whenever we deal Thorn damage to an enemy. Okay, so that's why we got the Thorn damage tough as nails in the skill tree, okay, so that we can proc Revenge. And not only it gives us the multiplicative damage increase from this, it also increases the rare notes, so we gain more DR thanks to it, which is great because that gives us more survivability, and also more vulnerable damage, which then turns, thanks to our next board and Hemorrhage, into another multiplicative damage increase. Okay, so Revenge here in the Decimator is just awesome, definitely my pick to go for. And then we are of course taking the Decimator itself because it increases our damage whenever we make an enemy vulnerable by 10%. If we overpower a vulnerable enemy, which we are still like, there is 3% chance to overpower an enemy no matter what build you play, so it actually does happen. So that's just another 10% multiplicative damage increase. Just wonderful. And our last board is Weapon Masters. We don't even need this Denial rare node for another resistances because we are already maxing them out, as you can see. So we ignore this. That's a point we spent elsewhere for better things, and we are taking the Weapon Master legendary node because swapping weapons grants us 4% of our max fury. Because we are playing unconstrained, our skills don't actually spend so much fury, but we are sitting at 260 fury. Okay, 260 fury with this build. So when we, regen 4% and we are only spending 35 fury to 35 fury on our spender, this is just, combined with the skill tree where we gain a Furious Impulse. Again, when we swap weapons, we gain more fury. It's just absolutely bonkers. Okay, like we gain so much fury, and we are not spending as much as Hota would. So this is just awesome. So that's it for the Paragon board. And then let's look at the gear itself. Shaco, self-explanatory. That's just the best helmet in the game. Plus it boosts everything, lowers the cooldown of our charge. It's the best item in the game, period. Okay. Then for the chest, we are going for DR flat, DR reduction from bleeding, DR reduction from close, and max life. We are not playing Fortify in this build, so we are not getting damage reduction from Fortify. And I will even explain you why we are not playing it, why it's actually less survivability than not playing it, and why it's even more, it's more damage not to have it. Okay, like DR fortified with this build does not make sense. It does make sense with Hora because you are spending more fury and you have Warbringer to like constantly have Fortify, but Fortify only is in effect when it's higher than your max life. Okay, so that's where you get the 10% DR from the Fortify itself, plus if you have DR fortified on your gear, that's like what you get. Okay, but but you lose max life and fortified normal value if your life is higher than your Fortify, so you are losing that 10% DR, making it not worth it. Like, not worth it. It's just kind of Paragon points wasted, ethics wasted, skill points wasted. We can use it for better things. Okay, so like this is the reason why it's not on the chest, why max life is there. And the other reason why max life is there is that with season 3 they actually buffed the maximum life percentage, okay, on like gems, Paragon board, etc. It now scales your max life flat ethics. Okay, so that's absolutely insane. You probably have seen videos where Hota Barbs could do 100,000 HP or more. So so yeah, this is the effective HP that we get from this is just awesome. We are using the Juggernaut aspect here because like there's nothing better. Like this aspect is absolutely awesome. You don't need to stack it. You have it up at all times. It lets you reach the armor cap at all times. Awesome. great job adding this aspect. Like, a lot of people are dooming on season 3, but the season 3 actually gave us a lot of cool stuff, okay? Like this aspect. Then, for the gloves, we are using all stats, strength, attack speed, and ranks of Rend. The reason why there's no crit chance, for example, is because damage over time effects cannot crit. Okay, so we are just maxing on the flat damage. The all stats here will help us reach, you know, the 1450. Okay, we are not reaching 1500. We could, but we would have to sacrifice. We would have to sacrifice some points that already give us damage, or we could sacrifice, for example, for example 5% DR close from the Carnage board to get it. But is it worth it? I don't think so. Okay. Plus, you would have to have all, and I mean like all of your items maxed out, like not missing even a single stat from all stats or strength. So all stats on your gloves will help you reach the 1450. That's my goal. 1450 strength for 290% increased damage to Rupture. And the aspect here is Skull Breakers, because we are stunning enemies a lot whenever we use charge and hit a terrain. So that will do some extra damage. For the pants, obviously using Tybalt's Will. It's 40% multiplicative damage increase at all times. We love it. We want it. We are already immortal. We don't need more DR on the pants. You know, the DR close here is enough. What we want is max resource again, you know, to give us more damage with Ramaldin's Magnus Opus. You know, just flat yeah, like this is the best. This is the best. Plus, of course, it helps us with the resource generation, because whenever we charge, we gain 50% of our fury back. So what's not to like? What is not to like? Then for our boots, we are going for triple resistances. You actually need these quite high rolled, okay? So like, as you can see, fire, poison, lightning, okay? So there's 11% off. So the worst here you can have is 49%, otherwise you will not hit the resistances caps. Okay? So just for your information, let's take this down. Let's do 49%. Okay. Let's do 50 then, because then wait. Oh yeah, that would still be enough. Okay. So 49% will be like super precise. And then take it down to 0 upgrades, okay? So like, if you drop shoes, they should be at least 32.5, you know? Max is 40. As long as it's at least 32.5, you're good, okay? Preferably, you want this higher, but 32.5 is the minimum, okay? So that you can reach the resistances caps. And then movement speed, of course. Because we are using attacks reduce evades cooldown by 1.2 seconds, it also pretty much completely negates Juggernaut aspect's negative effect. So, yeah, this aspect pretty much has no negative effect. They just gave us an absolutely awesome aspect. Thank you, thank you. Then for our two-handed bludgeoning weapon, we are going for all stats, strength, vulnerable damage, damage while berserking. For obvious reasons, vulnerable damage is for our hemorrhage multiplier, damage while berserking is for our blood rage multiplier, all stats and strength is for our, well, simply multiplier from the strength itself to reach our rare nodes in the Paragon board, you know, and to increase the damage of our Rupture. Now, the aspect here is Edge Masters. We are almost always at maximum resource, so this is up at all times. Then, for our weapon, finally, to explain, Ramaldin's Magnum Opus, that's the strongest sword you can use for bleed build, because it increases our damage based on the fury we have, okay? So that's why we are stacking fury. It's a multiplicative damage increase, you know, it gives us max fury, like it itself, the item itself gives us max fury. So yeah, that's just awesome. For our other weapon, we are using mace. Yes, mace. Overpower damage doesn't give us anything, okay? But the mace itself does, you know? Remember, we are using wallop, so it increases our damage while using bludgeoning weapons, okay? So yeah, that's all of our damage, because, you know, all of our abilities apart from Whirlwind, we are using dual wield. So it will benefit from both from Maldnis and the mace. The aspect here is Ancestral Charge. Those are like you might have seen it already, ghosts next to you when you use the charge. So it further helps you knocking enemies into terrain and dealing damage, you know. And yeah, we are focusing quite a lot on the charge. So this is just awesome. Still the same stats on the weapons. Like, we always go for the same stats on the weapons. So yeah, our sword is the same thing. Again, you know, strength, all stats, yada, yada, yada. And here we are using Veteran Brawler's aspect. Now, what this does is that when we do damage with our core skill, it increases the damage of our charge, which basically will have no cooldown once we get everything rolling. Like, literally 0 seconds cooldown. So basically, we will always just do Whirlwind, Rend, Charge, Whirlwind, Rend, Charge, you know, over and over. Then when there's a lot of bleeding effects, you know, against like bosses or something, we just, you know, use Rupture to like rip the sword out of them, rip the bleeding effect, like do an insane explosion from the bleeding damage, and, you know, do another bleed in AoE on the enemies. It's really good. You can also use it at the beginning of your rotation to get the attack speed, okay? Because yeah, again, once we get everything rolling, we will have like what, extra four ranks on this, so it will be 9, so it will be on a very low cooldown. So feel free to start with it to get the attack speed. That's actually probably the best way to use it, especially when bossing. You start with the Rupture for the attack speed, then you just stack your damage, your bleeds, and it will have like 6 seconds cooldown, you know. So after 6 seconds, you use it for some insane explosion, okay? So that's the rotation. Pretty simple, strong as hell, and 1 Whirlwind in AoE, 1 Whirlwind insta-stacks the Veteran Brawlers. So our charge is pretty much non-stop, almost double the damage. Right? It's just, I just love this build. I just love it. And the gems in the weapons are damage over time. Of course, this is a bleed build. Then for the ring of the Ravenous, you know, finally we know the stats. The stats are pretty good. Crit strike chance, if it was damage while berserking, would have been way better, but I understand why Blizzard gave us crit strike chance. And a lot of it, normally you would have 8% maxed out. Here it's 12, because they actually expect us to play Gushing Wounds. Gushing Wounds were literally made for bleeding builds. But according to the testings, almost no matter what you do, this is always a DPS loss. There's literally no reason to play it at its current state. They will have to buff it for it to make sense. So I understand it, but I would rather have something else there. And what's important here, of course, vulnerable damage. They know that you are playing Hemorrhage or should be playing Hemorrhage with bleeding builds. And the 3 ranks to brawling skills. 3 ranks to brawling skills. We are 12 ranks of charge, 7 ranks from items, 3 from the ring, 4 from the Shaco, and we will have another 4 ranks from the Schnitzel. The Schnitzel is the seneschal construct. So if I say Schnitzel, you know what I mean. Okay, so this will be 16 ranks of charge, no cooldown, absolutely bonkers damage, you know. Good job. So just, you know, people are dooming, really dooming, but I think even though there are some things that are bad with the season, there are also very good things that I enjoy. Maybe it's not as good for other classes, but for Barbarian, I'm having an insane amounts of fun. And I hope you will as well using my bleed builds. Then for our other ring, we are using a ring that also has shadow resistance. Okay, we want to have 2 of the same resistances on the ring so that we can reach the cap. If there was anything else, we will not reach the cap. Okay, so your second ring also needs to be shadow resistance, and then we want resource gen, damage while berserking, vulnerable damage for the reasons I mentioned like 50 times already, max fury, and what I went for here is encroaching ref. Okay, so like after we do all of the damage, this will further increase the damage of our rupture that we already increased by, you know, so much thanks to having all that strength. So this will further increase mostly our single target output. Okay, like you could play something else here, but like from what I've seen, even like I am level 90 now, but I tested before I got to level 90. I saw 30 million hits from my rupture. Okay, 30 million hits, and like that's not low at my level without any of the best in slot items, without any of the new unique, you know, Schnitzel gems, etc. So it will be way more. And that was before using encroaching ref. So encroaching ref, really good to maximize on all of the synergies of this build. And then the last item is Melted Heart of Selic. It's awesome. It gives us all stats. You know, they doubled the value. It gives us movement speed. Again, awesome. We want to be as fast as possible for speed running. Damage while healthy. Well, thanks to Selic, that's pretty much all the time. So that's also just a good, you know, additive affix. And the resource gen, again, what we want, what we love. And again, it gives us another thing that we love, max resource, and they doubled it, so it's now 60. So it further increases the damage from rubble. Like everything works in our favor. Absolutely everything works in our favor. And of course, then we are using the gems to make up for the rest of the resistances. One of the gems is shadow resistance. That's how we kept it. You know, 2 shadow resist rings and 1 gem. And the other 2 are whatever resistance you don't have on your boots. Obviously, you do not want shadow resistance on your boots. Okay, never, ever. So you do like fire, poison, or lightning, or fire, poison, cold, doesn't matter. You know, 3 out of these 4, and then the 4th one, you just use 2 of that element gem, and you are set. Now, for the Schnitzel, I think every build will be using this with some slight changes. Like we are using bleeding support. Not everybody will, of course, be using bleeding support, but like this side, the Flash of Adrenaline, everybody will be using. Like the second I saw this announced, I was like, bro, that's just 50%. Like, this is 50% multiplicative damage increase at all times. It has 100% uptime. You know, Genesis increases the effectiveness. Duration support increases the duration, and tactical support decreases the cooldown, meaning that it lasts for 12 seconds and the cooldown is 12 seconds, and it's 50% multiplicative damage increase. So Flash of Adrenaline with these 3 stones, the best you can get for any build. Any build. You will always use this. No exception. Always. Apart from like leveling, where you might use like for example, reconstruct, you know, because that heals you and that helps while leveling. That's actually what I am using right now to help me leveling up, because then I don't have to worry about defensives as much. Okay, but you know, end game, Flash of Adrenaline with these 3, and then Tempest. Again, everybody will be using Tempest. Everybody and their mom will be using Tempest, because there's nothing better. You know, it's AoE, it spreads, it's just awesome. Evernight. That's our, you know, Shaco. So again, this is quite cool, right? People don't like the pet. I actually don't like pets much either. I want myself to be, my character to be strong, right? I don't want the pet to be strong. But pretty much the pet, like what the pet does is it makes you strong. So what does it matter? It's basically a copy of vampiric powers, just done differently. Okay, and this is pretty cool. +4 to all skills, it's pretty damn cool. Bleeding support, okay. 50% of the supporter's skills damage dealt is applied as bleeding damage, further increasing our, well, damage, and enemies take bonus bleeding damage from all sources while moving. And because with Whirlwind and Charge, basically what we do, we non-stop move forward, you know, this is up a lot. Unfortunately, it's not up against like Malphas because he's stationary. So yeah, that's a bummer. And then safeguard support. Okay, and this is the reason why we are not using fortified, because like you would have to choose. You would either have to get rid of bleeding support and lose damage to get fortify support, because without it, trust me, you cannot keep fortify up enough, you know, without using Unbridled Rage, because we are just not spending enough fury. Even with Warbringer, it's just not enough. You need to use fortify support. Okay, so it turns out to be less survivability and less damage. So yeah, if you are running a bleed build, you will not be running a DR fortified. Trust me, it's both survivability loss and damage loss. And yeah, so like this is it. This is it. It was a long video, but I hope I explained everything. Considering this build. And now let's just have a quick look at what I also prepared for you. You know, the build is still there, the original one that I made, the theory craft, you know, before we realized that Paingorgers are absolutely useless. But what's probably gonna interest most people are these two. Rend Selic, because that's just without Whirlwind. Some people might not like it, so this is with a Lunging Strike. Lunging Strike, you know, also gives us some healing, so that's pretty good. So people might opt for this instead of Whirlwind. And of course, the Rend no Uber leveling boards. Here you can see I am using Lunging because, well, it is extra healing. We don't have any Ubers, you know, we don't have as much HP, we don't have as much survivability as our best in slot build. So Lunging for extra healing, you know, then Iron Skin again for extra healing and survivability. And then like the amulet that we are using, again, further boosting our survivability with damage reductions. You know, movement speed is, you know, obvious, as we are doing damage reduction while injured. You know, because that's very good. We actually want to go low on the HP. We will be able to survive there, and then we pop our Iron Skin to get the highest benefit out of it, because it gives us barrier based on our missing life. Okay, so that's why damage reduction while injured, it's so powerful here. You can, like, if the damage is enough and your tankiness is not, you can further increase it by getting rid of ranks of the Cut to the Bone passive, you know, getting another damage reduction. And we are using the Iron Blood aspect, so we gain 6% damage reduction for each nearby bleeding enemy, up to 30%. So before you get the Uberist, this is how you become tanky as hell. Okay, so lots of variations here in the Uber leveling board. As you can see, if you click on the Paragon board, I also created, you know, level 80, level 85. It goes up by 5 to see like how you are supposed to connect the boards, where you are supposed to put the points after every 5 levels, or like towards, you know, towards that level. So that's there for you as well. The reason it starts at level 80 is because that's like when I suggest to do the swap. Leveling up, like very early levels, I think the easiest you can do is use dual swing. It requires no aspect steward. You just need ancestral aspect of the charge aspect, okay, because that's like we are using that pretty much everywhere, and that's it. That's literally all you need. It will work. And if you get the twisters aspect, you know, where your dual swing do the dust devils, and you know, when you spend 100 fury, it or when you gain 100 fury, it will shoot the devil. When you use dual swing in quick succession within 2 seconds, you will spawn the dust devil, the twisters, you know, the tornadoes, which do damage. So if you find these, it will like help you, but you don't need it. Like dual swing just works. Like that's how I level up my barbarian. Super easy, like yeah. But this is focused on my like mid to super end game build, and that's bleed. So I really hope you like the video. Please come and join me in the dream team, because well, this is a Rend dream, right? And I hope you're enjoying the game as much as I am. So thanks for watching. See you in the next one.